Okay, moving along in the agenda. 4.2, curriculum update. I'd like to welcome Dr. Knapp and Kate Thoma.
Good evening, everybody. I'm not going to be as exciting as that was, but I'm sure going to try. That was really fun. So Dr. Knapp and I are here to give you a couple curriculum updates, and I'll start with the K-5 lens. I'm in charge of the clicker. She's in charge of the clicker, and she didn't click. It's tricky.
And I did not do that, though. I hope not.
There.
All right. Okay. So sorry.
Okay, so I'm going to start with the K-5 lens and update you on some things that I hope to bring back to you when they are completed later this spring. So the first one is work with our English Language Learners Department. Jennifer Winters is assisting with that, but looking at the curriculum standards, materials, and resources that we have across K-5 English language classrooms. We're still working on our art, music, physical education, and library courses of study. Social studies, I spoke with you guys about last year. We were looking at an extended trial of Savvis, and we decided not to go with that as a resource, so we're back at it this year, plugging away and working on those resources. And then a big one is English language arts revisions. So we have had Wit and Wisdom for 3 years now, and we have identified that we are looking for some more flexibility with that in order to be able to provide intervention and enrichment opportunities. There was also a phonics update that came out last year that requires phonics instruction through grade 3. So we need to look at our 3rd grade course of study because currently phonics is not required. So we want to make sure that we are meeting all of those requirements. So fingers crossed, we're going to work really hard, and I'll bring those back to you in the spring.
Later this evening, I will be bringing forward for your consideration some courses as we prepare for high school registration to open in the coming months. Can you believe we're already talking about the 24-25 school year? I'm not ready. We are currently updating courses of study and evaluating materials for English language arts, and we're also evaluating materials for mathematics. Given some recent legislation and clarification in Ohio Revised Code, our ELA materials may be selected next year. They had originally said, oh, everything has to be on this approved list, and then in November, they said, oh, we just meant K-5. Meanwhile, the 612 people had been waiting for communication to come out. So we were on pause for 2.5 months, so we are a little bit behind as where we thought we would be by this time. In science, we are updating our materials science course to have fully articulated course of study with driving questions and alignment between buildings. We have 3 third-party curriculum vendors that are updating specific courses in science, and we will be updating to align with those changes. In IB, and we had an IB teacher who teaches this course who was recognized earlier, so we'll be sending him to professional learning if this gets approved in the spring. But this focuses on an interconnectedness of concepts, context, and content, and the facilitation of deep learning, which we know is very embedded in our IB program. In AP, we actually have 3 physics courses, 1, 2, and C. They're moving a unit from 2 to 1, and they're aligning their language through physics C. That was kind of the outlier. So they're really just trying to clean some things up. No significant changes there. Project Lead the Way has worked to make their courses both human body systems and principles of engineering, and that's the first course in the health pathway for high school, and then the first course in the engineering pathway. So you know what that means, right? Like next year, we'll bring 2 and 3, so we'll still be talking about and supporting our Project Lead the Way courses at the high school, but to make them more engaging, sequential, consistent, and relevant. So they have some exciting changes that our teachers will be learning about, and we look forward to bringing that to you in the spring. Social studies courses in middle school are also being updated, and we are looking to select resources. And the government course of study is being updated to include the student interactions with peace officer content. That's currently a model curriculum with ODE, or it's in draft form, and one of our teachers, Kelly Stalker at Westerville South, is part of that committee. So that's been super helpful to have her do that work. And then financial literacy, we brought this before you last year, is a required elective for our students, starting with the cohort of 2026, and I know, I never thought I'd say those two words together, right? And we are reviewing materials. We have some new teachers in our business department. This is something that is shared between our business and social studies teachers. We wanted to teach it for a year and kind of figure out the ins and outs before we went and chose a resource, but we do believe we'll be bringing a core text in front of you in the spring that our teachers are going to be selecting collaboratively very soon. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Kate.
So now comes the really exciting part. We have a lot of legislative updates this year that require us to provide some additional instruction. So we're here tonight to share those with you. This slide has a lot of text on it, but I felt it was really important to show you what was in Ohio Revised Code, so I'm going to just highlight the bold parts. Senate Bill 288 requires our school district to provide developmentally appropriate instruction in child sexual abuse prevention to students in grades kindergarten through 6th grade. This instruction must occur annually and include information on available counseling and resources for children who are sexually abused. We also are required to provide developmentally appropriate instruction in dating violence prevention education and sexual violence prevention education to students in grades 7 through 12. None of the resources or materials that we use can be connected in any way to any organization that provides, promotes, counsels, or makes referrals for abortion or abortion-related services. As a part of Senate Bill 288, we are also required to provide in-service training to educate school personnel on child sexual abuse. These trainings must include instruction from law enforcement officers or prosecutors who have experience in handling cases involving child sexual abuse or child sexual violence. They must be a part of that training.
Whoops, okay, went too fast. And too fast, okay. I'm going to lose my clicker privileges. I don't have control of the remote at home either, just full disclosure. Okay, each school district shall notify parents and legal guardians of students who will receive this instruction. This communication will include that it is part of our required curriculum, and upon written request to the principal, the parent or guardian may ask to see the materials, and within 48 hours, the principal will allow the parent or guardian to examine those materials at the school. While we have very similar processes, this was the first to articulate the 48-hour rule, so we wanted to point that out. And similar to other topics that are listed on the next page that I'll show in just a minute, upon written request, the students shall be excused from this instruction. So we currently have a number of identified subjects that are listed here. The last 4 in bold are the subjects that we will be discussing this evening.
Can I ask a quick question? Sure. So can you tell us what the communication is going to look like?
So we are working on that, but we have talked with our communications department about just communicating in every different way possible. So at K-5, we know a lot of our, and please speak up, but we know a lot of our parents look to what the teacher communicates home. So there would be something that would go home in like the Friday folder. Am I saying this right? Friday folder, okay. We've also talked about an all-call to our parents and having the principal put that in their update, as well as our secondary teachers sending something home similar to K-5. I have 2 high schoolers, maybe not all the papers come home, but again, we would try multiple avenues to get that communicated. We've also talked, and this would require 2 board readings, so this would be after January 8th, which would be the second time that you would see this. We would be putting information on our website and letting know how people can contact us as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And if anyone has other suggestions about how to communicate, we do feel like it's extremely, extremely important, especially at the K-5 level, for all of our parents, actually, for them to know that this is something that we are required to do.
So we've given you all the background information. Let's talk about what we're actually going to do with it. So at the K-5 level, Jesse Martin and I worked together to review all of the proposed options you could use available on ODEW's website. After we narrowed that list down, we met with elementary school counselors, administrators, and teachers that are on the health committee and talked about what we felt was developmentally appropriate and what resources and materials were out there. So for students in grades kindergarten through 3, we're going to use fightchildabuse.org. I do want to say we're not using every material and resource from that website. We decided as a group what we thought met the requirements of the laws and was also developmentally appropriate when we think about 5-year-olds receiving this instruction. Elementary school counselors will provide the instruction in one classroom lesson in their already set up structure. So if they were going on the second Thursday of the month, that month's lesson is on the topics that we've talked about tonight. We are exploring offering family viewing options prior to the lessons taking place for families to come with their child and participate in the lesson, because we know that this is some sensitive conversation and topics, and we want to give families the opportunity to, one, see it, but also to be the one who talks to their child about how their family chooses to handle this type of situation. So we're looking at offering those in February. Those would be led by our school counselors with additional support, and we're trying to offer them in as many locations as we possibly can, drumming up as much business as we can get. We want as many people to see these prior to that instruction taking place as possible. We're also looking at offering, Jesse Martin and I will work together to offer parent prep sessions for just the adults to come and view that. We know that's the lens for that, so we'll give them the information about what's required in Senate Bill 288 and the resources that we'll use to teach it. So that's kind of what it's going to look like at the K-5 level.
So can you explain who Jesse Martin is and the importance of the collaboration?
Sure. So Jesse Martin oversees our mental health and the elementary mental health specialists and the elementary school counselors. So when we first talked, and we felt the elementary school counselors would be a great avenue for this instruction and the support and the warning signs and all the pieces that went into that, we kind of have just been back and forth working with our different stakeholder groups and having conversation, but that was why she was supporting this project. So I do want to give her a shout out too, because this is not an easy topic to talk about. We watched a lot of videos and looked at a lot of curriculum. Thank
No,
you.
I appreciate the collaboration.
Yes.
Very much so.
For grade 6, the middle school health teachers selected materials also from fightchildabuse.org, and similar to elementary, we are not using all of the resources that are on that particular website. There is a section for 4-6 and a section for teens. This would be the 4-6 section because we felt that it was the most appropriate. This will be facilitated by our physical education teachers, and as we've collaborated with the mental health team and our school counselors, we'll be working together to meet with that entire group in January to talk through how best to support our teachers as they deliver this content. And we too are going to be having some secondary sessions at Parent Prep, both for grade 6 and for our 7-12 requirement. But our 7-12 requirement is fairly different. So I want to just ask if there are any questions with grade 6 before I move on to 7 through 12. Okay. I really should not have the clicker. Okay. So for 7 through 12, again, our middle school and high school health teachers selected materials from kidshealth.org, and there are more specific classroom lessons banded in grades 6, 8, and 9, 12 that are listed on the classroom.kidshealth.org. Our teachers, our health teachers, have been teaching this content for years. This legislation, I mean, I remember working on this with health teachers back when I first started in curriculum, which was like 2010, 2012-ish. So the dating violence piece has been there, and sexual violence prevention in 7 through 12 has been there for a long time. The difference is the piece that Kate mentioned earlier around where the resources could come from and what affiliation they may have. So we have refined what we have used to align with this requirement. And switching to, so that concludes Senate Bill 288. I'd like to move into House Bill 123, but I do want to check to see if there are any questions. And we have a question slide at the end, so if you think of something, no worries. But just before we move on, I wanted to check in. Thanks for sticking with us. House Bill 123 requires schools to provide instruction on suicide prevention, violence prevention, and social inclusion annually in grades 6 through 12. For each of these, in collaboration with our mental health team, yay to Jesse and Tammy, Tammy's here, we have selected Sandy Hook programming. And this slide articulates all of the components required of these 3 topics, and we just color-coded it so you could kind of follow along. They do tend to couple suicide awareness and prevention and violence prevention because there's a lot of similar strategies to be utilized with those two. We will complete the suicide awareness requirement through an assembly schedule in which our mental health specialist and social workers will be showing a video through Google Meet to the building and leading that discussion. For violence prevention, we will be showing a pre-recorded video and an extended advisory, again from Sandy Hook. And then lastly, I really don't know where I'm supposed to aim this. Okay. In advisory over a series of days, they will be showing a pre-recorded video using Start With Hello. So that is the name of the program on social inclusion from Sandy Hook Programming. We do have timelines for Senate Bill 288 that starts with parent communication in January, sharing those requirements. In January and February, the collaboration that I spoke of earlier with our 6th grade teachers and support. Later in January, our grade 7 and high school health lessons take place. This is typically, or it falls in the course of study in Unit 2 under Healthy Relationships. In January, in February, we got a lot of things happening in February. In February, our K-5 family viewing nights will be offered, while in February and March, the district will offer sessions on these new requirements during parent prep. K-6 lessons will happen in March and April, and in May, we will review and revise the lessons and the plan for the next school year. One thing that's interesting about House Bill 123 is we knew that it was coming, I think a year before we knew, roughly, before Senate Bill 288 was coming, yet we had to do both things this year, which was a lot. Our House Bill 123 timeline includes collaborating with our secondary buildings to schedule lessons. We're very intentional about this, and we meet with them this Thursday. So we want to make sure that if a suicide prevention learning is happening on, like North has selected February 21st, that no other building is going to have that same learning or any learning on House Bill 123 at that time. So if additional support staff is available, they are able to support that building. So we are in collaboration with our mental health team to, they will be assigning different people to buildings just to help make sure our students have what they need. And given that this requirement is yearly, so you can see the months that we will be doing suicide prevention and then violence prevention and social inclusion, again, reviewing and revising our lessons. And given that this requirement is yearly, we will be collaborating over the summer to develop grade-specific lessons. So our thought is maybe this becomes what we have done this year, that becomes the 6th grade lesson for all of our students, but then we will develop 7th, 8th, 9th through 12th, because this is something that has to happen annually. And additional information can be found on these websites, and at this time, we would like to open it up to any more questions. Come on.
Would you fill us in a bit on how this applies to private schools?
Doesn't.
Sorry.
It does not.
Thank you.
It's very, yes, sorry.
Go ahead.
I will not elaborate, but it's just very interesting what the state requires of us and does not require of private schools.
I do want to thank you and everyone involved in this work, all of the curriculum work. Just looking at these two bills and their requirements is sufficient for most curriculum departments to handle over a couple of years' time. But when we layer on all of the other curriculum work that's going forward, I want you to know how much I appreciate the massive amount of thought and your attention to the sensitive nature of what is being required of us, and doing your very best, all on the team doing their very best to make this as appropriate for our community and for our children's development as it's possible to do. Thank you.
Your comment did remind me that I wanted to share that we're both working with our English language learning department to talk about how we can make sure our families can understand what we're teaching students and have the opportunity, as well as working with Adam Flugie and students in our specialized learning centers, because sometimes what is developmentally appropriate needs adjusted. So we are still in the works of working with those two individuals as well.
There are significant cultural questions
Yep.
in what is being required of us to do.
Yes.
And I know you're very much aware of that, and I thank you for your collaborative work in trying to do that as appropriately as we possibly can.
And to that point, because I had the communications question, making sure that it is in our languages for our ESL families, and just communicating in every way, using talking points and all of the resources that we have to support them. So I didn't mention that either. Thanks.
I have I guess it's a question. So I'm thinking about, these requirements, and as we implement them, we have so many pieces in place that aren't straight up curricular pieces, but so much support of our students in a lot of these areas when things are going on in their lives. And I think, the way that the requirements are written, it's, an hour here, an hour there, right? So I know there's collaboration, but if you would just talk a little bit about, how we do this hour, right, this curricular piece with students. But how are you seeing this fitting together with some existing support and programs that we have? And I don't know if anybody from the back wants to come up and talk about that too, but we'd just love to hear your thinking, so it's interconnected.
I'll start with K-5, and then Tammy, if you want to jump in on anything, go right ahead. So many of the elementaries we're already doing start with hello, so there's been a focus on some of the pieces that were highlighted through House Bill 123, which is not a requirement of K-5, but that is a part of it. Our staffs are always looking, all of us are mandated reporters, and receive training and what the warning signs that we're looking for, so we've always been aware. Now we're providing instruction to help students be aware. But it will not be a one and done. I also know that this is really important instruction, but could be very triggering for some of our students as well, who may be experiencing some of these pieces and parts of what goes into this instruction. So I know that Tammy and Jesse are very focused on what do we need to do to make sure, one, our instructors feel comfortable and confident, because they may also have personal experiences with some of the pieces that we're required to provide instruction on. So just being aware of taking care of everybody in our school community. It is important instruction. We just want to make sure that we are a little hyper-focused on looking for those warning signs, especially in and around the time of instruction, but we don't plan for it to be we got this one day. It is required annually, so we know that that will become a part of our conversation. After selecting some of the curriculum materials and resources for K-3, for example, they have the protect yourself rules. Well, that wasn't previously in our vocabulary, but now it will be. So now we'll be able to have that common language that we'll continue using with students long after this lesson takes place. And next year, we'll be able to be a little more forward planned, so they're hearing it throughout the year, and it's not this lesson that comes in and teaches you all these rules.
Right.
So hopefully I answered a little bit from the K-5 lens.
And I would say, with Senate Bill 288, this does align with our health curriculum, and while we are also using the fightchildabuse.org, those same protect yourself language is in there, so we will see a continuum of that. Our secondary buildings, not everyone uses Start with Hello, or not everyone uses the Sandy Hook programming, so I think this gives us a great opportunity to align our work and have greater consistency. Advisory is new this year for middle school, and that work is done by a middle school advisory team, so they will work with specifically the social inclusion and a little bit with the violence prevention of how will that fit into their day. If you've not seen it, it's this beautiful calendar. The teachers click on it, and they will be, that video will start, so they will have that experience, but that is something that that design team will see. We have also been, we have Hope Squad that we have at our high schools, and that aligns with suicide prevention. There's also a piece, and now you're going to lose me, but with QPR, and QPR is only approved for adults, but that would have been a great thing for us to use. But I think I failed to mention this, but House Bill 123, you have to go to the ODE website, and you can only pick things off of the list. Senate Bill 288 also has that, and we really relied heavily on that for K-6 because those were vetted again by another party. But Tammy, what have I missed? Matt, what have I missed?
Thank you. And it is really important content. I know that we will handle this carefully, but I do have concerns about that triggering piece for some kids, and just making sure that they have the support in all these other ways. And I know they do, but just that's something that weighs heavy on me with this. Yeah, thank you.
We agree.
So I'm just thinking about the viewing at the schools. So we talked about that at elementary schools. Will that be at each school, or how will that work?
So we're still working out the details. I can update you on that. When Jesse presented it to the school counselors at the elementary level, they were all really excited, and they were like ready to do it tomorrow. So we had to slow them down a little bit because we knew we couldn't start that for a little bit longer yet. But we're going to offer it as many schools and as many nights as we can across the campus. Any parent can go to any of the schools, so when the district puts out their communication, it will list all of our viewing dates, and whether, if I can't find counselors for one specific building, we'll make sure that we have it happening at other close locations. So trying, again, just to get it out there as much as we possibly can. So they were very excited and ready to go.
I'm wondering if that might be an opportunity to introduce our parents to QPR and maybe have some dates there so they would know when that's coming up, because I think that would maybe like dovetail into some of that. I trust you, and I think you have done an amazing job, everyone that's worked on this. I'm super concerned with the rollout and communication, because no matter how many times we communicate, we're always going to get one person that didn't hear it for whatever reason.
Yes.
So if there's anything that we can do, please let us know, or how we can support you. As a parent, I have older children, but younger children, I'm not sure I would want my child to participate in this. So what would happen if a child doesn't want to participate? What's plan B?
In terms of if the child shows up that day and doesn't want, or if
Correct.
the parent opts them out?
Parent opts them out.
If the parent opts them out, we will move forward with our opt-out plan depending on how many students that is in a classroom. They'll either potentially go across the room to the other classroom, to a library, and have adult support. it's really hard to predict because we
Sure.
don't know how many people are going to opt their children out. So we have a plan if it's a few, and we have a plan if it's like an entire class, and just thinking through what are the health activities that will take place, because our policy requires that it's a similar activity but not the same. So we're looking at what we'll alternate that with. We have been really hyper-focused on selecting the curriculum materials, and now we're moving into those heavy communication, parent viewing, those pieces that come next. But I had shared with you, I'm very nervous about
I know.
families not engaging ahead of time or not having access to, and just making sure that we give as many opportunities as we can for all of our families to view the lesson plan and content, and be aware of what we're required to teach their children.
Sure. I think it might be nice, every time we hold one of these events or someone's speaking, if we could maybe invite our legislators so they know how hard we work
Yes, that
and what
would
we're
be
doing all the
great.
time.
I
So
would
maybe
love
just like a
that.
quick email of like, hey, again, oh, you're not here. But
Yes.
yeah, you handed
Yeah.
this to us.
Yes.
So, anybody else? Joe, anything you would like to say?
We're meeting with Senator Brenner in a couple of weeks. I'll run that by him,
Yeah. I'm sure he'd love to attend.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you both very much. Appreciate it. Okay.